Some news breaking in the last half hour. A source close to former director of the CIA, John Brennan, confirms that Director Brennan has received a subpoena in connection with the ongoing Florida grand jury investigation into probes by the CIA and FBI into Russian interference in the 2016 election. Another source familiar with the matter says all the subpoenas in this round requested documents related to the preparation of the 2016 intelligence assessment on Russian election interference. The inquiry and the new request for documents comes 2 years after a special counsel appointed by former AG Bill Barr concluded an exhaustive investigation that found no criminal wrongdoing by John Brennan or any other major figure connected with the Russian election interference matter.
Welcome back with Terry and Mike to Behind Enemy Lines. We got a great guest. I guess you can figure out who we're talking about tonight, huh? So, yeah, we have Ian Trotter, born in 1976. Not that he really cares that we're saying that. Oakland, California, is a fourth generation San Francisco Bay Area native. 1999 graduate of the University of Oregon. Entrepreneur, podcast host, political activist, and an advocate for constitutional principles. He founded the parking solutions company iPark in 2007, launched Discussions of Truth podcast in 2016, ran as a candidate for U.S. House of Representatives in Florida 27th District in 2018. In 2020, President Donald Trump referred to him as a prize fighter. Now, that's pretty impressive, in a private setting for his advocacy work. Trotter is a author of High Stakes Treason: How Brennan Compromised American Security for Millions, published in 2025, which uses open source information to allege financial fraud and security compromises of the former CIA director John Brennan, a total piece of shit. So let's welcome Ian. How are you, sir?
Terry, nice to be with you. Nice to
did I miss anything on my AI bio I read about you?
No, you pretty much hit everything on the head there.
Well, thank you, Grok. Thank you, Grok. So welcome. We started with that little opener with talking about Mr. Brennan. Why don't you tell people what motivated you, or what drove you about wanting to write this book about John Brennan, which I'm glad you did. Why don't you share what was your motivation that led you to writing this book?
The motivation was pretty simple. I was at a 2024 CPAC, and a well-dressed gentleman, very mild-mannered, approached my podcast table, handed me a binder, and he said, "This is why John Brennan hates Donald Trump." I started flipping through the pages, and I said, "Oh, you're a follow the money kind of guy." He said, "That's exactly what I've done. I've spent years on this information. Nobody will address it. Nobody will talk about it." In 2021, I submitted a 25-page synopsis of the information that I had gathered. Crickets. And he says, "What I've shown here is that John Brennan has manipulated signals intelligence. He's hid it in code word compartments, sequestered the information, used an unwitting analyst to get away with the fraud, and holding on to illegal stocks under the Obama administration while Americans were in jeopardy and Americans died and were maimed." That's the nutshell of the information that was given to me. And at that point in time, I've made it my entire sole focus to distribute the information. So what readers find in High Stakes Treason is open source, as you mentioned. That means public, nothing classified, information that shows that the former head of the CIA, the man that Barack Obama appointed to lead the CIA, that's critical to understand, committed very, very heinous financial crimes and other crimes on the American people. So they're getting basically what is being distributed and given to American citizens is an FBI report that has been that I've authored, right? So I've gone through it. I've added some things to it. But in the introduction, it's very apparent for readers to understand that this is the crux of the information on John Brennan that was given to me is from a former FBI agent that served in the D.C. Office for over a decade. Interestingly enough, Terry, as he was finding this information on John Brennan, the malfeasance. This is
Hmm.
back in 2011. He submits a tip to the FBI, his former employer that he left in
Hmm.
2000, and the private company he was working for, named Cy Valence, calls him into the office the next day and said, "Did you contact the FBI about criminality of John Brennan?" He says, "Yeah, this is what I found. I see that crimes are being committed, and keep in mind this is 6 years before he had come across the SEC false disclosure
Hmm.
statements with the SEC, this false filings with the SEC, and all the information is in the book. There's over 100 pages. I think it's 110 pages
Hmm.
of an appendix, and they says, "Well, pack your bags. You're fired." So he gets fired from the
Hmm.
private company, trying to expose the fraud to his
Hmm.
former employer, the FBI. The FBI does nothing with it, and then he's unemployed for 2 years. But when I found him, of course, I grabbed his information. I took it. He says, "It's yours. Go with it." And I says, "Well, I've got to establish a precedent because yeah, I've made it mine. But of course, you're the guy that spent years trying to expose this information on John Brennan. So this is critical for
Hmm.
readers to understand. Um, this former FBI employee couldn't have his name attached to authorship of it, and he needed an independent source such as me to make it my own and publish it on my own. But in order to establish credibility, I've got to say, I've got to tell the reader that yes, I contribute to it. Yes, I embrace it. It is my information. However, it comes from a
Hmm.
binder that was given to me of of this research on John
And
Brennan.
it was,
So,
sorry to
so
interrupt you,
that
Ian. So the FBI guy who gave you the binder information can't have his name on it because he was a former federal agent. Is that why?
Yeah, Terry, that's exactly right. So, anytime that he goes, because of the agreement that he had with the FBI, and it remains until he dies, any type of publication that he wants to submit to the public must be
Mm-hmm.
approved
Yeah. Approved.
by the FBI.
Yeah.
And so I says, John, you know, couldn't you at least publish it and then deal with the he says no. He says the FBI would confiscate anything I would try to officially publish out there. So um, Tony Lyons of Skyhorse, who Skyhorse has published Robert F. Kennedy's Jr. Real Nancy Fauci. He's the first guy that I went to publish this information. And I had him on a call, Tony, with my intel source. I call him my intel source. The three of us
Sure.
spoke 2 different times for about 40 different minutes. And then a literary agent in New York got involved, and I met Post Hill Press, and they gave me a contract to publish. So that's where I hired an editor, went through the edits, 2 or 3 different edits, and then it got to their lawyer, and that was the interesting part. So then the lawyer looks through it and says, "No, we're dead in the water. This is." He really advised Post Hill not to go through with it. He gives me vetting points to address. So I go back, I reword some things. I don't extract anything. No White House visitor logs. None of the SEC documents. None of the information on X key score, which is what Edward Snowden blew the whistle on.
Yes.
Prism, different NSA programs that Brennan was using to commit the
Mhm.
alleged frauds. None of that got extracted from the appendix. Just kind of reworded some different things, and they went with it. They published it in July 22nd, as you said, of 2025. I sent a text to
Mhm.
Steve Bannon that morning because he knew that I was working on it, and he had me on his show within 3 hours
Mhm.
with Natalie Winters. He's out in the office. He calls in and he says, "This is the most exquisitely timed release of a book in the history of publishing. Donald Trump has just called Barack Obama out for treason in the Oval
Nice.
Office. He's
Yeah.
hosting that day. He's hosting the president of the Philippines, and so it's the first time any sitting president had called a former president out for treason. But we're an interesting angle to look at here is John Brennan. Back in Terry, look, I never had a bullseye to target John Brennan at all
Mhm.
until John had given me
Mhm.
this information, and then I'm like, whoa, this is
Mhm.
this is wrong. This is wrong. And the first word that came out of
Mhm.
my mouth was, okay, first, is there anything classified? No, there's nothing classified. It's all open source. Okay, good. Because I can't be looking at classified
Mhm.
information. I don't have that authority.
Yeah.
Second,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
treason, John. And all right, this is non-legal
Yep.
opinion. He's not attorney either. and he says, yes, this is exactly what we're talking about. So that's what's on the cover of the book, is treason, because he's aided and he's provided aid. He's aided and abetted an enemy during a time of war. The time of war was the global war on terror, which ended in 2021 under Biden. But this is very, very severe, very heinous. And what I wanted to say, Terry, is if we go back to his time at the University of Texas, Austin, this is John Brennan. And this is how Roger Stone, who's written the forward, got involved. And as soon as I approached Roger, he just boom. I mean, he was all in, because he understands and he knows John Brennan is not. He's not an America first guy. He's a globalist first guy, and he's attacked the United States in different ways. Obviously, I'm not saying physically, but he's used intelligence that he's not privy to. And I'll explain that. So he votes. So one thing that got Roger interested, and by the way, Mike, and I know you know General Flynn, Mike Flynn was initially going to write the forward to this, but he got busy. His schedule wouldn't permit. During that time, I had an event with Roger. I approached Roger, and within 2 days, he says, I want to write the forward. Basically, he says, I'll write the forward to this. Great. You know, those two guys know the severity of what we're talking about with John Brennan. I mean, this is very bad. So John Brennan at the University of Texas during that time, 1976 is the year, he votes for a guy named Gus Hall, who's a communist. He's a Communist Party candidate.
Yeah, I saw
He's
that.
a Communist Party candidate. And so this is what I think. And Zygmunt Brzezinski, who is a mentor for the most part for Barack Obama.
Yep.
We look at
and his daughter's on MSNBC.
Huh?
His daughter's on MSNBC. His daughter's on MSNBC, right?
Is she?
Married to what's his name? Yeah. What's
Mika Brzezinski?
Yeah,
that's
Mika. That's his daughter, right? Mike.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it looks like my guess, and this is what I was telling Mike before you joined, Terry. I've already started a second edition on this book. I've already started it, and I'm hoping I can have it out for the 1 year anniversary, which is July 22nd, because there's so much more information that I'm digging up and that is even being revealed that needs to be added to this. And I can get into how I've on a very surface level, I've communicated with Mike Davis. That's Article 3 project in DC.
Yep.
He's worked with Trump. He's working with Quinones right now in South Florida, that Fort Pierce grand jury. So that's another angle that's interesting. But I want listeners to understand that if we go back, 40 years, and we're looking at Barack Obama, there's a critical year that Obama supposedly was he was supposedly a student at Occidental College, that's Los Angeles, and there's a year, at least a year more, that overlaps where he's not in the country before he starts studying, supposedly, I say supposedly, because there's disputed records of this, at Columbia University in New York. And during that time, he's in Pakistan. So what we're told is that he had roommates at Occidental that were Pakistani, and that's the reason he goes to Pakistan. What's he doing in Pakistan exactly? I don't know, but this is the point that's important, and this is why I talked about Zygmunt Brzezinski. John Brennan may have likely, because of his communist sympathies, and we can see communism growing in this country now with Montgomery in New York, this there in Seattle, what's going on in Minneapolis, the socialist policies up there with Waltz. This is now in California, the entire state's basically.
What about Illinois and
so
Chicago? Chicago.
Yeah.
Oh, Chicago, sure. Yeah. We can kind of look at these things, but the point here with John Brennan is that before Obama gives a fundraiser in San Francisco in 2008, John Brennan scrubs critical data off of his passport using the company that we allege in this book called the Analysis Corporation, how John Brennan made a stock portfolio of the Analysis Corporation worth of about $50,000 skyrocket within a number of about 3 different years, because Congress is funding the war on terror, to just shy of $5 million. and this is allowing NATO. This is NATO. You talk about Nicaragua and Noriega, right? So going in, Noriega gets extradited, comes to the U.S. He does his time. But then after, what people don't realize is that after the Americans were done in Noriega, he went to France because there were crimes that the French were charging him for too. Well, the same thing could very likely be happening with John Brennan, because John Brennan, if I accomplish exposing the information properly, he'll be tried by Norway for alleged crimes that he allowed. And what I'm saying is that he allowed the Oslo attacks under Anders Breivik to happen. 6 months prior to those attacks, because of Edward Snowden whistleblowing, as an example, we know that John Brennan would have had the intel that Anders Breivik was searching how to create bombs. He's doing this on Google, right? He's doing this on open searches, public searches, and he's buying materials. He's buying bomb-making materials.
Ian, is that
with his own
you say
credit card.
he allowed that to happen? Are you saying this is why he allowed it to happen? Because this should have been readily available information that they could have intercepted? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, and it caused his stock portfolio to skyrocket.
Wow.
Mike, you got it exactly right. He's sequestering. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I read through portions of the book already. I've not got through the whole thing, but it sounds like this was done numerous times, not just in Norway, but here too. That he may have let things slip through, let some attacks transpire, because then again, that creates an urgent need, and suddenly, same thing, his stock portfolio goes up.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there's three different terror events that we tackle in high stakes treason, and the first one was the foiled Christmas Day underwear bombing, a flight that left Amsterdam, headed for Detroit. That was the CIA could have stopped that. We know that. We know that. And so John Brennan would have sequestered. He would have compartmentalized that intel in a code word compartment. Nobody would have access to that except for the person that created the code word compartment.
It's like when you said we could have stopped that, right? With the shoe bomber. Can you explain, like, for myself and the audience, like, because I know this is stuff that you know intimately, but like, how could we have stopped it, and why wouldn't we stop it if we could have stopped it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Abdul Manatalib is a known terror suspect because he's been following a guy named Anwar al-Awlaki. So Anwar al-Awlaki is an American-born imam. He becomes an imam. He's a Muslim, but along with John Brennan. This is the allegation, according to John Guandala.
Oh yeah, he was on the show.
Former FBI agent.
We know John.
On your show? Okay, so John has stated that not only is Brennan a convert to Islam, so we already know he has communist sympathies. He's voted for a communist president, candidate for president. But he's a convert to Islam, but he's not only Islam, he's convert to the most radical sect of Islam, violent sect, physical violence, which is Wahhabism. Okay, and this would have been during his time in Saudi Arabia. Now, let me also insert this, which is, and you may want to run that clip. I don't know if you're going to do it or not, but there's a man that testified in 2003 that worked at the State Department in Jeddah, and Terry, his name is Michael Springman. Spring like the season, Springman. Michael came back to the U.S. and I think there's a panel discussion with Cynthia McKinney where Cynthia is grilling him on this. Well, Springman was saying, "Hey, I go to Jeddah to work for the State Department. I'm one of 3 employees. The rest are all CIA. It's basically a CIA consulate. It's not a State Department. It's not a State Department office. This is basically CIA. Well, that's John Brennan's control. That's what John Brennan is operating. And one of the things that Springman was saying, over 20 years ago, is he's saying, out of Brennan's jurisdiction, and Mike Benz has covered this, I think back in August he covered this. Under Brennan's jurisdiction, 15 of the 9/11 hijacker visas came out of John Brennan's approval.
Yep.
15.
Has he ever had to address that or explain that? Has that ever happened? Or his
Harry, I've
they're
never
not
heard it.
probe.
I've never heard it. I've never heard that question asked him. I haven't heard it. Mike?
No, it gets reported every once in a while. Yeah, let's go ahead and run this clip you sent over regarding Springman, because again, this is something else I think most people don't know.
Years ago, we had 15 of the 19 hijackers get visas from the CIA's consulate at Jeddah.
15 of the hijackers, 15 of the 9/11 hijackers got visas from the CIA's consulate in Jeddah. That's John Brennan, CIA Director John Brennan, back when he was the head of the CIA consulate in Saudi Arabia, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. 15 of the 19 hijackers got their visas from John Brennan. Let that wash over you. Redux. All that stuff about him getting people's passports is just so that he can get visas for terrorists. The same thing the CIA wanted all day long for the 9/11 hijackers, 15 of the 19 hijackers. It was John fucking Brennan and his CIA consulate who did that. One has to almost wonder if John Brennan with his Ukraine emoji in tow, one has to wonder if it's visas for terrorists. Redux.
Okay, so let me insert here. The reason Mike is addressing Ukraine there and Ryan Ruth is because what Mike is suspecting is Ruth is, it looks like, a former CIA asset to some degree, whether he's a contractor or a subcontractor. He's somehow working for the CIA in Ukraine. And what he's doing is he's recruiting these Afghani and Iranian people, and he's doing it on Twitter to fight in Ukraine. Now, why that's important is because he's asking for passports. He's asking for these people for their passports so that he can grant them visas. This is exactly, and this is why Benz opens that with Springman. This is exactly what Springman was doing, what the CIA had Springman doing, not the State Department, the CIA. And keep in mind, JFK, what was it, 1961, at Waldorf Astoria, the famous quote, he wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces. The CIA is so rogue. It looks like it's so rogue in this country. It's disgusting. It's way out of control. And that's, and so what it looks like, the parallel is that Springman was granting these visas, and Springman comes back home stateside and he's saying, wait, I'm being told to grant these visas to people, but they're terrorist suspects.
Yeah.
That's what Springman's saying. And he's being basically forced to grant these people visas. And that's where he says, you heard it right out of his mouth, former State Department worker, and he's an attorney. This is Springman. And he says 15 of the 9/11 hijacker visas came out of John Brennan's jurisdiction and approval, essentially, out of Saudi Arabia.
That doesn't sound like a mistake. I mean, 15 out of 19 play the odds. One going through there and slipping through, okay, maybe somebody goofed up. But this, again, sounds like the CIA really orchestrated this, or at the very least allowed it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's by design.
Is there a lot of people that government officials that work for the State Department really work for the CIA, but they say they're in the State Department? Is that true?
Mike, I mean, I would say it's true.
Yeah, there seems to be some validity to that. Let's put it that way.
So if we go back to this guy, Anwar al-Awlaki, right? So Anwar al-Awlaki and this Abdulmutallab, the guy that boards the flight, it looks like what we see is that CIA allowed this guy to board the flight. Unfortunately, it was a passenger. They caught wind of it. The bomb never went off. It was foiled. But the objective here, and Anwar, he's a guy that we know he's a terror threat because he's been following the sermons of Anwar al-Awlaki online. This is the guy that arranged the USS Cole bombing, essentially. He's a CIA asset. We know this. And so this is the guy, of course, that threads in to the Norway bombing, and then the one that really caught my attention, and this is why I've been pushing this information out, and this is why it's so critical that Americans read this book, because what they're grabbing, what they absorb, what you will absorb, what people will absorb when they read this book is basically the lens of how an FBI, a man that's been trained to defend the homeland, right, is seeing the criminality of the man that became the head of the CIA under Barack Obama, and during the time he's the senior advisor for Homeland Security. And let's not forget, he's the guy that basically works hard, difficult to get Obama elected. He's the guy that wants Obama elected. So it's real critical for people to understand and read this book, because again, it's the whole viewpoint of, okay, if you're going to dissect what the deep state is and how it operates, then you have to understand their level of sophistication. And it's something that the average American that does his 9 to 5 or her 9 to 5, raising their kids, worried about paying the mortgage, just integrating into community and being a good citizen, the average person doesn't quite understand that level of sophistication, right?
Yeah.
We don't, because these people are professional spies, right?
Yeah.
This is a brilliant mind of espionage, and he's gotten away with it so far. Hopefully,
case in point with me. I mean, I was never involved in politics. I thought the deep state, man, maybe there's a little bit of them there. I thought preppers were total whack jobs. And then when I got in with this, because of the porn and stuff, and then we start doing our show, it scares the shit out of me. It's like, the government is more corrupt than the mob is. I mean, they're more dangerous and more corrupt than organized crime is. They really are, because they trick you, just like with your book and Brennan, and they have a much disastrous effect on our lives, but we just don't know it, or we're not aware of it.
We find out 30 years later.
It's scary.
Yeah, exactly. 30 years later. Well, I mean, I spend 5 hours on the phone a few weeks ago with a woman named Judith Berry Baker. Now, Judith Berry Baker, is has a relationship with girlfriend, if you will, of Lee Harvey Oswald. And here's another guy that's now 82, I think. His name is Files.
Yeah, we have.
And he said,
"Yeah, is he still alive?"
Oh, you had him on the show.
Yeah, is he still alive? But you could tell the audience.
Yeah, so he's 82, and he says, "I shot JFK, and I shot JFK from behind the fence of the knoll." Well, I mean, from the Zapruder film, we can all see that the head, an object struck the head, and it goes to the back, because Jackie gets on the back of the automobile, because that's where the brain got splattered. So the bullet doesn't come. Yeah, the bullet doesn't come from where Lee Harvey Oswald was at the book depository. And so this is likely the most heinous crime committed on American soil outside of 9/11. It depends on what your view is on that, but and it's basically it's false.
I got something.
So
we had Judy on the show as well. And when you hear this stuff, you see the books, and there's different variations in the mob, right? All tied into different. So when I talk to him, I'm thinking, is he a whack job or not? You know what I mean? You try to read somebody. So I can tell you without a doubt, when he said he was taken out by the CIA in Joliet in prison, absolutely true.
Yeah.
One of my good friends who's not in politics, not a Republican, he was a prison guard there. And after I had, I'm like, I say, "Hey, did you ever hear this guy?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, I was working, And he said he was taken out. He goes, "Yeah, it's true." He was taken out. He was a guard there. He worked there. I mean, he's, and he was kind of surprised that I asked him. And then he said, yeah, they would just come and take him out. So that is absolutely 100% true and verified through my friend. There was a prison guard with this guy. I didn't even think my friend would know his name and stuff. And he did. And he verified it. They took him out of the prison.
Wow. Incredible. So if we let's go back to some of the subpoena right now, right? So John Brennan's been subpoenaed. Interestingly enough, I spent a week and a half in DC in October, and I took 100 copies of this book, and I passed them out through offices in the House, the Senate, I had a few different meetings, and I gave one to Nancy Pelosi. In fact, Nancy Pelosi walked past myself and my intel source, John, and John gives her a nasty look. I probably smiled at her, being nice, but she walks past us, and 10 minutes later, she has this encounter with I can't remember her name, but the reporter for Lindell TV, where she turns around, she's all
Kara Castronova.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Pelosi, we had just left Harriet Hagman's office because we were meeting with her legislative director and explaining this material to the legislative director. And Pelosi, as we take a left out of her office in the Longworth, I think it is, Pelosi and three of her bodyguards must have been come walking past us. And then we didn't know what was going to happen, right? And she walks over to the hill, and that's where she has that encounter. 10 minutes later with this Lindell reporter, she's like, so pissed off. She's like, shut up. I'm not talking about this. But these people are hiding. These people are hiding such heinous crimes on the American people. It's disgusting. So let me tie some things in here for the Brennan ICA. So the Brennan ICA comes out 2017.
Wait, what's ICA?
The investigation.
People don't know what that means. ICA.
Yeah, the ICA is internal. It's an audit.
Okay.
It's what the hell
That's fine. It's an internal audit. That's all. That just don't worry about it. You don't have to be specific. It's an internal audit. So
I should know the acronym.
Don't worry about it. That's all.
Mike, look it up real quick.
Oh yeah, listen, I
doing
didn't do
that right now.
You don't have to get that detailed. It's just an audit. That's fine.
It's an.
So go ahead.
Nope, sorry, that's not right. Go ahead.
Yeah. So out of this Brennan ICA, basically, right. So there's a meeting, and I've submitted a FOIA request for this. December 9th, Obama meets with Clapper, Rice, Brennan, and other people in his cabinet. This is where it looks like Clinton has organized this effort to smear Trump, right, and say Russian collusion. Trump, you got elected because the Russians were running ads for you on Facebook, and they were basically, you colluded Trump, you colluded with the Russians to win the election, right? So that's the 2016 election, and Brennan heads this ICA to investigate that. Okay, if we fast forward to the 2020 election, they're able to rig the election. They're able to flip the script. They're able to take the election away from Trump, basically, because of manipulating Dominion servers. Okay, this is where this woman, Tina Peters, is right now incarcerated in Colorado. That's the headquarters. That's the hub of the Dominion servers, and people don't understand where Dominion comes from. Well, it was basically a product of the merging of two companies, one called Sequoia, which were electronic voting platform, with the Venezuelan-founded company called Smartmatic. Okay, so we talk about oil and illegal entry into the U.S., gun smuggling, drug smuggling. The more critical point here, the most critical point for arresting Maduro, is because he got into power illegitimately off of this Hugo Chavez era illegal voting system called Smartmatic. If we tie back a guy named Patrick Byrne is the co-founder of Overstock. He has stated, Overstock, right? Cambridge University, Stanford. He has stated that John Brennan, built a data center in Belgrade with the purpose to manipulate Dominion servers. So it's off of this data center, one of them, but it's off of a data center in Belgrade that John Brennan built with Huawei, the software company, Chinese software company. Right. And Brennan's building building the data center. They manipulate the Dominion servers in 2020 to rig the election. I mean, it's clear as day. If people watch the TV, you just saw the numbers start, it's skyrocketing for Biden. You're like, where did this come from, right? Trump's winning. And then all of a sudden, it was like 11 o'clock Eastern time. I remember because I'm watching the TV, and it's like, boom, all these votes are mysteriously found for Biden, and Biden wins the election. Well, they flipped that, and that has a lot to do with Cambridge University and Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica goes back to the Russian collusion
Yes.
of Brennan ICA, not so much from the 2020 election. But Cambridge University is a guy named Stephen Halper, and he's a CIA asset, and he's working with Christopher Steele to produce the Steele dossier. And we're talking about cybersecurity. In cybersecurity, there's a guy named Sir Richard Dearlove that runs a cybersecurity firm called Crossword, and he's part of this Steele dossier fraud. And so that is what was used. That is what was used to quote show that there's a Russian collusion. Well, what we know is it doesn't have anything to do with Russia. Even Putin is saying we don't have anything to do with it. It has everything to do, and I'll reveal this to you, Terry, because this is critical. And I've approached Bannon about this. He didn't know about it. I've approached Roger Stone about it. He didn't know about it. I haven't approached Mike Flynn. Mike might know about it, but most people I've talked to about this don't have any clue what it is. It's called the Hamilton 68 dashboard. No. Have you guys heard of that?
Yes, from
through
Mike Lindell.
The Hamilton 68 dashboard is essentially a collusion of American internet minds, if you will, that basically create Russian bots to go in and manipulate Twitter usership and censor Twitter usership to flip scenarios for make it look like it's a kind of a Russian. That is basically the Russian intrusion.
Yeah, to launder it.
Created from the apparatus. Yeah, the apparatus of this Hamilton 68. Now, this is what's critical to understand about the Hamilton 68 dashboard is that it literally comes from the Alliance for Securing Democracy. And the Alliance for Securing Democracy is funded by the Marshall Fund. Now, the Marshall Fund is a German-based fund operating in the U.S. now that came out of World War II. That's the best that I understand it and can portray that. Who funds the Marshall Fund? George Soros.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the Hamilton 68 dashboard, and there's two names critical to understanding that. And one of the name is Renee DiResta, Resta, I think it's DIRSTA, I believe is the name, and she's operating out of the Friedman Spignoli, I think is the name, Institute out of Stanford, and then the other one is a guy named John Kelly, and she's tied. By the way, she's tied to something called New Knowledge. And the other one is called John Kelly working with Graphica, and this also ties into a department at the University of Washington. And keep in mind, it was Seattle and Portland that were the hotbeds for the Antifa activity. And I think people follow Matt Taibbi and Mike Benz. They've been talking about this institute in the University of Washington. And let's not forget, this is where Bill Gates. Right, Bill Gates had created Microsoft. Basically, I guess he started maybe at Harvard, not sure, but that's where Microsoft had been headquartered. I don't know if they still are for decades, right?
Their headquarters is in Redmond, Washington.
Redmond, yeah. So the reason I start getting privy to this information is, again, I'm following the trail of John Brennan, and to create a smokescreen for this Russian involvement, supposedly they pin Mike Flynn. Mike Flynn is the guy that's part of this operation because he's communicating with Moscow. And to use that, they say, meaning Halper and Brennan, they say that Flynn is having inappropriate relations with a woman named Svetlana Lakova. Well, I approached Flynn a week and a half ago for an introduction to Svetlana Lakova, and he says, I've got to check with my source because he doesn't even have a direct line to this person, right? And so they both said that there was, it's false. It's false. I've been following Svetlana Lakova on Twitter, right? Because and I just sent this to you, Mike. She just released that John Brennan. So we've known that Obama's been going to London recently. I don't know if you've followed that or not, but Obama somehow has been going to London.
He just bought a house over there.
Really?
And transferred half his assets.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and that's what we were talking about off air. Like, I'm pretty sure Brennan also bought a place, and I want to say it was in New Zealand. Maybe I've got that wrong, but I know he was hiding out of the country for about the last 6 months, and we were just
Wow.
discussing he was recently over in the UK delivering a speech.
Yeah, so he's actually this woman Svetlana Lakova. She just posted that Brennan is testifying of some sort, or giving some sort of speech. Something he's speaking to Parliament in England. Now remember, I talked about Cambridge, right? This security intel operating out of Cambridge. There's a connection there
Yep.
for listeners to go through. But there's two sides of this coin, Terry. Right? So this is my point. There's two sides to this coin for John Brennan. Here's a guy that's a communist sympathizer dating back to his college days. Is he handpicked by the deep state back then, meaning Zbigniew Brzezinski and et al.? Very likely, right?
Yeah.
Because they know he's a sympathizer. Mike, I think you had made some comment in regards to information you've been receiving that he's the guy most likely to talk and sing.
Yes.
Well, what we have in high stakes treason, how John Brennan compromised American security for millions, is a paper trail. We have the paper. We have this. It shows that he's committed financial crimes while he's allowed terror attack activity on America and a NATO ally.
Yeah.
Purposely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, putting those pieces together with what you and I were talking about just before we went on air, I mean, that makes even more sense. If you have these kind of crimes, that there's an easy paper trail that you got with public information and that you can prove dead to rights, maybe that's why there's so many people that know him and work with him that I've spoken to that at this point don't want to be identified publicly, has said, this guy's a squealer. Think of the Joker. They all said this is somebody that's going to talk, and maybe that's because there's a burden of proof of him committing direct crimes against Americans that would very much upset the public, and I'm sure he probably doesn't want that revealed, and may be willing to squeal on other things, maybe go down with the ship on some of the other crimes that are revealed. And again, I'm just spitballing here, but he certainly would not want these kind of things revealed, be widely accepted public knowledge.
Yeah. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Kudos to Posto Press for publishing the manuscript. They got where the lawyer says we're dead in the water. CEO comes back to me and says, address the vetting points. We'll go from there. I spent 2 weeks addressing all the vetting points. I say, here it is. This is the best I can do. They said, okay, well, green light. I'll let you know when it's live. And that was July 22nd. This is I've already started on a second edition because there is so much more information coming out. The two sides of the coin are John Brennan seemingly right. And keep in mind, 9/11, he's the chief of staff to George Tenet. He's the chief of staff to George Tenet on 9/11. What information did they know through the Analysis Corporation? And keep in mind, the Analysis Corporation was the database that tracks terror activity globally. Okay.
And I've got a question for you real quick. Well, I mean, do you think there's any chance in hell we actually see Brennan arrested, or is he just too deep, too well protected? Because, again, we were talking off air. It's been teased out 2 different times now that somebody's coming for Brennan with an indictment. And when it didn't happen 12 or 13 weeks ago, and it didn't happen over summer, I don't know. I just don't have faith in anybody anymore at this point.
Yeah. Before you answer that, Ian, because I was going to ask you the same question. Let's show that little flyer from my buddy Mike. I promise we would.
Yeah.
Show, even know what the hell it says. 1 year anniversary, January 24th, Saturday from 1 to 3 in my old Southwest Side neighborhood of Chicago, Oak Lawn. I went to Oak Lawn High School. It's the intersection of Chicago, Burbank, and Oak Lawn. 5805 West 87th Street. I think that's called Demos. Is the name up there? Demos. I think it's a bar. Demos. I'm pretty sure it's called Demos.
You're probably right. I don't see it on there. I couldn't get the full Facebook.
Girl I went to high school, mom was shot in the head there as a bartender when I was in high school.
Jeez.
It was 79. Jesus, that only got worse.
I wonder if that's.
So I'm going to try to tell
that. Right, Signetti said he's year after that win last night.
Yeah. So what's your impression, and what are you hearing about the grand jury, and to Mike's point, is there anything? Is anyone going to go fucking jail for any of this shit? If they don't go
Yeah,
soon, we're screwed. What
this
do you
is
think?
yeah, it's if there's any lawyers out there that have interested in filing some type of a suit, there's let me mention something pretty important here. It's something called a qui tam, or quitan. It's a Latin word, and that is a quitam, cuitam, a quitam lawsuit could be filed against John Brennan for the allegations in this book. And again, it's got the receipts, it's got the appendix under the fraud by way of inducement, which is the False Claims Act of 1863. Brennan allegedly defrauded the U.S. government. I mean, I'm telling you right now, he did.
Yeah.
It's I mean, outside of being legal, I can say, yeah, it's proven in the book, but I can't necessarily say that because it's got to be proven in a court of law.
Yeah.
It's really an opinion of
Are
mine.
any politicians grabbing onto this? Or anyone saying, "Hey, come on in"? Like we're very interested. Is anyone willing to pick up the ball and run with it? What are your thoughts on that?
Right now, Terry, it's the grassroots patriots, like the three of us that know there's knows something's got to get done. And we're the people that are willing to talk about it and spend the time with it. Let me give you an idea. I had a reporter at the Daily Mail. She worked 3 days on an article. She gives it to her editor. The editor approves it. Hey, green light. Daily Mail's going to pick this up. It gets stopped by a legal advice, whatever that meant. It gets stopped. It never ran. The New York Post has known about this for
Not Dana.
over a year.
You're not talking about Dana Kennedy, are you? No.
Yeah, you know Dana.
Oh yeah, I'm supposed to call her about a story tonight. I swear to God, my yeah. Oh my God. So I'll say this real quick. There was a communist. My kids, I got involved in the porn. My kids' school. It's ran by all Marxist Socialist school board and everything. They just graduated, and I get this flyer from another mom. They got adult Marxists in front of the front doors of the kids' school recruiting them. I went. It's on my pages, you guys. I went and confronted them, and Dana saw it. And Dana's been out. Coincidentally, she called me. She's investigating my kid's school because they wanted all the porn, the drag queens. Well, 2 teachers. That one Italian broad was banging a sophomore for like 50 times in the school. Another teacher got caught with child porn. So she saw the track coach. He got 15 years in jail. All in my kid's school. Now this Marxist thing, African American only field trips. So I know why she called. It's got to be because of what I just posted when I confronted these guys. I got it on camera at the same school that she's investigating. So we'll talk about that later. So go ahead. I love Dana. So go ahead. Oh, I hosted her. Her Trent was.
Let me add a little off-topic quick question for you guys. How many teachers do you think get arrested for either child pornography or sex with a student or some other kind of perversion every month? Give me your best guess, both of you.
12.
Not even close.
No, I mean, obviously, since you're asking the question, it's something that's.
Yeah, I was trying to.
I mean, unfortunately,
300 to 500.
Wow, man, where the hell were all those hot, horny teachers back in '79? Huh? You should see this teacher. When I found out, my son's a wrestler, football player. I'm like, boys, why didn't you bring teacher over here when mom was gone for the weekend? It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Yeah, well, I guess I was trying to make a point. I think we got a problem with our schools right now, especially if it's increased that much just in the last 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, so back in the day when Brennan was doing his communist stuff, that people would hide, be underground. Now they're in front of the schools, sending up tables and handing the stuff out. It's crazy. Our country's screwed.
No, it's screwed. If we don't do something about it real soon.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. Now, when you talk to her, Terry, I mean, that's up to you. If you, it's kind of she spent a lot of time on that article, dude, and she thought it was going to go out, and then they axed it, and so I don't think she's very happy about that. But frankly, I haven't even spoken to her since then because it was delicate. It seemed like it was sensitive. That didn't go through for her. But similar with the New York Post. The New York Post has known about this and there's a specific. I won't mention her name, but she's released a book on Hunter Biden laptop. and she's not about it, and nothing has come out of the New York Post. Terry, I walk into the Newsmax office in New York, and I hand delivered a copy of this book to the CFO of Newsmax, because Rob Finnerty is a guy that I'd engaged with in regards to keeping him, up to pace with what was developing in the material. The Newsmax hasn't spoken about it, and I sit down with a New York Times reporter in D.C. With John, my intel source. We spend an hour describing to him the sort of stuff, more detail, of course, than what that I've talked about here, and the New York Times hasn't picked it up. So, is there any any hope? Of course, there's hope.
Yeah.
Mike Davis is a guy that I'm trying to engage with this so that he can get it to Quinones. I think he's the lead attorney for that South Florida jurisdiction where Brennan's been subpoenaed. They throw Roger Stone. They throw Roger Stone in jail. John Kiriakou is a guy that's written a forward to this book, and he's been very vocal the past few months, especially about John Brennan. It was John Brennan that was running that torture, that torture program that Kiriakou blew the whistle on. Kiriakou went to jail. Kiriakou went to jail because he wanted.
And they tried to kill him in prison.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just saw him talking about that it didn't happen. He found out about it, and then suddenly the plan gets pulled. I just saw him talking about that on somebody's podcast a week or so ago.
So I haven't been successful in getting this to the chief executive, or the commander in chief, rather. It'd be Donald Trump. I haven't been able to speak to him about the contents. I don't know, even if he knew about it, I'm not sure what he could do.
Yeah.
I don't know those laws.
Right.
But what I do know, and what I do make a comparison to in the book, is a guy named Benedict Arnold.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at with this John Brennan. And it shouldn't be taken any lighter than that. This is treason. This is very serious, because what he's done is he's selling out our constitutional rights to enrich himself personally, which is what Congress. I believe.
Like all of Congress is too. It's like they're selling us out, all of them.
Yeah.
What do you? What little snapshots about if you can, or willing to, on your next book, like that you're focusing on, that's going to pick up from here? Can you say, or are you going to wait?
Yeah. So what I'm going to get into, Terry, what I'm going to get into in the revised edition, or edition number 2, is basically there's going to be twofold, because, like I said, there's two sides to this coin. The way I see it through my lens, is there's the whole voter fraud issue. It looks like the deep state global connection with it starts with Cuba and about Monroe Doctrine, starts with Havana. With Castro, it's linking over to Caracas with Venezuela, and then of course it's going to China, Russia, Iran. So there's that whole kind of deep state syndicate that needs to be exposed in regards to John Brennan's role in all of that, which is coming to light. So that's one side of the coin that'll be elaborated on, that I anticipate elaborating on. The other side of the coin is the use of terror, the use of terrorism, as what I believe is basically a facade, to create an enemy to produce wars. This isn't anything. This isn't any new concept, of course. We've been talking about this. Those of us that lived through 9/11, like the three of us, this is something that we've long suspected was going on.
Yeah.
But of course, we have been unable to get our government to approve it. Talk about Richard Gage. And
it's not only create; it's probably to enable, right? To already either create or from scratch, or easier to enable our enemies and kind of help them behind the scenes, try to hide it, to get them to a position where we have to spend money in a war.
Yeah, but I mean, thank goodness we got a guy like Donald Trump, because had they gotten away, sounds like that data server in Belgrade, according to Patrick Byrne, that was compromised. So something went in there and what I mean is something was deleted or it wasn't a factor in the in this past election.
2024.
With
Yeah.
yeah, 2024. It wasn't a factor because somebody had gone in there, but had that group not successfully gone in and be able to wipe out or do whatever they did in that data center, we're looking at a Harris.
Yeah.
These the borders would be wide open
Oh my
as they
God.
were,
Yeah, we'd
um,
be done.
and we'd
No
be well on our
country.
way to complete
Yep.
uh, dissolvement. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd be moving to Argentina or El Salvador. Sorry, Terry, go
Either,
ahead.
either one of you guys saw, like 2 weeks ago, I saw it because I don't know what to believe with AI and stuff, and I haven't seen it everywhere. But there was some guy from Italy speaking in Italian about Venezuela and the voting machines, and somebody's coming out and talking. Did you guys see that too, or
no,
I think I know the video you're talking about. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of why they grabbed Maduro. I'm sure he knows where the secret sauce is, and I'm sure he's bargaining with that right now. Probably he thinks for his life. I'm sure there's more going on. I hope that they did compromise this Belgrade data server, that they grabbed whatever they could off that too while they were there. Because I mean, this is a giant complex web. The deep state is, I think, much more entrenched than even Trump thought. And I think that may be part of the reason why we haven't seen major arrests or anything yet. I hope that's the reason. I hope the other stuff they're saying, that Susie Wiles got some kind of deal for non-prosecution of people, I'm hoping that isn't true. Because yeah, people like Brennan, even Obama, I think he's a CIA cutout too. I mean, his grandparents were CIA operatives. There's a whole paper trail with him moving all over the world and different connections that just don't make any sense, from Frank Marshall Davis to numerous others. But yeah, something's definitely entrenched there. And if we don't get rid of it now, we will never have a real free country. We may have the illusion of it for a few years, but if you don't end this, we'll never actually have a free country or free state or free world for that matter.
I think this is only a band-aid. I mean, it's so bad, and more stuff like having you on the show. And I mean, it gets more depressing every different guest from a different part of all the conspiracies and stuff that seem true. And it's like it's scary. It's overwhelming. I'm at the like all the stuff in Chicago. The Maduro protest that day, they had a quick one. I mean, all the same signs, all these Marxist communist organizations, people come out of the woodworks. I mean, at the school, at the ice center, it's all Marxists and communist idiots, that people that used to hide underground. Now they're like openly bragging about it, and it's concerning because they have so much money behind them, so much organization and communications to ramp up people and show up, right? And something dramatic has to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me put it for in context for people to understand at least where I come from. In 2016, I got turned on to a book by a former Stanford Hoover fellow, and he got censored actually for divulging that the Bushes, Prescott Bush, was involved in funding Nazi Germany. This is World War II, right?
Yes.
And so you're then saying, hey, wait a second, an American's funding American bankers are funding Hitler Germany. Well, that's exactly what happened, and Anthony Sutton spells it out. And so then we're going back to, okay, what is the financial vehicle on which these types of banking transactions can operate? Well, it's something that never gets audited in this country, and it's called the Federal Reserve, which was passed by Woodrow Wilson in 1915. So Sutton explains this in a book called The Federal Reserve Conspiracy, and that I'm saying, I noticed that he doesn't use the word theory, because he's saying it's not a theory, it's an actual conspiracy. The country's been invaded, and it's been invaded by this banking organization for many decades.
Yes.
And so that's in 2016. And so then I'm like, okay, wait, Obama's going to London. Where in London is he going? John Brennan, outside of Parliament, where is he going? So people need to understand also that the city of London controls London, as we know London, because it controls the monarchy. It controls Buckingham Palace and that government. It's called the City of London. That's critical for people to understand kind of the infrastructure of how this global web that you just mentioned, Terry, operates. And it's basically up to Americans. We're the last bastion of hope on this planet, really, us and our Constitution.
You're right.
We saw that during the lockdowns,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if
Yeah.
it wasn't for Americans, I mean, yeah, Europeans were out there and rioting, but if it wasn't for us Americans standing up to these unjust vaccine mandates and mask wearing mandates, of course, maybe I'm biased, but I'm just kind of looking at Australia.
Yeah.
They were getting thrown into.
They were turning back into a prison colony.
Yeah.
I mean, they were
Yeah.
literally putting in, what was it, Good Springs Prison or something like that, something Springs, where they were shipping people out for forcible stays if they even talked about COVID the wrong way. And yeah, if we had just put our foot down here and a few countries in Africa hadn't done the same, they would have had this World Health Treaty signed, and that would be in effect now today. We'd all have digital passports, digital ID, and digital medical records.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
During COVID in Chicago, in Cook County, you could not get into a restaurant unless you showed your Vax card. I don't know. I think it was like that in New York. And I had these guys coming in from all over the country, and I had a meeting downtown, and I forgot because I no longer live in Cook. I grew up there. Now I live in the western suburbs, and I go all the way down there, and I'm like, "Fuck!" The guy's IDing people to get in the restaurant for the card. I can see. I'm like, "Son of a bitch," you know. And so my dad has got the same name as me, but he's 86. I had him send a screenshot of his card, you know, and I go in, then I'm bragging. There's a big table, you know, like 20 of us. And I'm like kind of an outspoken sales guy and other dorks that are jealous of me. And I'm laughing with the customers and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I showed them my dad's card. I got investigated by HR. They called two of them. My company's a French company in Paris, France, one of the biggest, international consulting firm. And we had all this bullshit we're supposed to track, and I'm like, fuck that, you know. And so, like, I'm like, oh my god, did you say you showed him your father's? I go, no, no. I said, well, I had to be careful. So I was going through cancer treatment. I said I used cancer to scare him. I said, well, I didn't want to like screw up our customers, and I have cancer. I shouldn't even been out, but my my oncologist said not to get the vax because we weren't sure, and that shut them fucking HR assholes up immediately. Now I'm sitting there thinking, oh my god, I'm getting fired for using a forged my father's vax card to get into a restaurant to have dinner.
Wow. Let me anyway, so what we got here with high stakes treason, we clearly got a paper trail that John Brennan has left behind. If there's anybody that's going to be indicted, it sure has got to be John Brennan. I personally believe that there's just way too much. There's way too much stuff on this guy for him not to be indicted. And if he's not indicted, man, that just shows the strength of the clamp
The deep state.
that the deep state has on DC. And it's like, how does Trump survive 2 assassination attempts? I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Uh,
Honestly, some very good luck on the first one, and honestly, luck on the second one too. I think even with that crappy SKS, the guy basically had a scope to tape to, 200 or 300 meters. I can't remember how far away the tee was. Doesn't matter what you have. I mean, basically, any type of rifle, with even remotely accurate, you can make that shot. And I really do think in Butler, Trump just got lucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did.
yeah, that's the yeah, right, exactly. And then this Ryan Ruth guy, right? I mean, the Ryan Ruth, was that an ordered hit of John Brennan? I mean, that's what Mike Benz is suggesting in August. He's suggesting that. And again, why are they going to London, right? Why are they going to London? Well, based off of the city of London and the banking infrastructure that's been set up there, that would make sense, right? That would make sense. So you got the paper trail, but most importantly, it's important readers. High stakes treason, in my view, should be read because again, it gives that perspective of how a deep state operative, which would be, in my view, John Brennan, right? He's working for the deep state. He's not working for the American taxpayer. He's working for the deep state. He's working for the global agenda. And it gives them an understanding of how that operation was engineered by one of the most brilliant espionage minds on the planet. John Brennan's no dummy. He's certainly not, but he's left a paper trail. So, I'm doing my best to expose it and see that he be
Yeah,
prosecuted for
that's
it.
good.
So we'll see. I won't.
So
I won't
people
give up.
can get your book at highstakestreason.com or Amazon if it's easier for them and if you're lazy. Otherwise, you could go on your website and get the book, right?
Yeah, you can go to my website, get the book. If folks want an autographed copy, which I get those requests as well, they can Venmo me directly. $35 pays for shipping and handling. It'll come right from my desk. Send an autographed copy out. Just Venmo me your address when you send the payment. Include the address, and I'll get it out to you. But exactly, High Stakes Treason and Amazon. And I recommend the audio version.
I have Mr. ADD. You see me? I'm like, my legs are going. I can't, and I couldn't even read a book when I was in the hole in prison for 6 months. So I'm like, my legs are going. So yeah, I got your book. I'm listening to it and stuff now.
Awesome.
And when I work
Yeah,
around the
you
house,
know what? I did an interview with Michael Jaco. You know who that is?
I heard the name. I don't. I know I heard the name. What's his podcast?
I can't remember the name of the podcast, but he's a former SEAL Team 6 Navy SEAL, and that's exactly what he did. That's exactly what he did. So, is he bought that Audible version, and I think within like 24 hours he was already on chapter 5.
No, that's good. Yeah.
Talking about some questions in regards to what he had learned.
Cool.
But let me emphasize that there's a hero in all of this, and that's this guy that left the FBI, was working for a private contractor. He was able to find the criminality of John Brennan. He's been attempting to expose it ever since, and he's just basically handed the baton off to me. And that's the hero in this, because that's a guy that's right in the middle of the swamp. And just get. I mean, his family. He gets a death threat. His family ostracizes him. Thinks he's nuts. This goes back to 2011, and he stays. I didn't meet him until 2024. And he stays persistent. Nobody would listen. He's convicted in his research. He knows it's true. And I meet him. He meets me, and I say, I will do my best to get this out. And that's symbolic of everyone that listens or watches this interview, as folks familiar with you, Terry, and the work that you do, and the work that you do, Mike. We're everyday average American people. Of course, the publisher gives me a percentage of book sales, right? So, but I don't survive off it. I don't. By and large, I'm a volunteer.
Yeah.
I volunteer.
People have to understand that. General Flynn said he did an interview with Emerald Robinson right before New Year's, and he talked about the deep state, what's left of it. They're still in the FBI. Trump has to understand it, and they're already compiling lists of people like us. He warned us.
Yeah,
you got to go back and look. It was Emerald Robinson and Ann Vandersteel. They were talking about. They played General Flynn's. He put out there. I just listened to the part where Ann and Emerald were talking about it, but you should look it up. I think it was on Emerald's show.
Well,
I have no doubt.
Circling, they're waiting. That's what it sounds like. What Flynn said. They're keeping tabs on all of us doing what we're doing because we've been successful. All of us collectively. We all have our little individual roles in your book and different podcasts and people doing different things. And God, if we didn't have podcasts, I mean, there's so much stuff we wouldn't know, or books like yourself that you're writing.
Yeah, I mean, the contents of the book are they're irrefutable. It's all documented. It's all there. It's obviously got to be. There's a critical thing, and if nothing gets done, nothing gets done. But with Tulsi Gabbard, right? And keep in mind, a lot of these people with Trump are former Democrats.
Democrats,
RFK Jr., Tulsi, Trump himself.
Yeah.
I don't know about Vance, but it doesn't. Political parties shouldn't matter when it comes down to it. The deep state is not after a political party. It just so happens that they've infiltrated successfully the Democrat Party more than they have the Republican Party, but they've well infiltrated the Republican Party as well. The objective of the deep state, which is not American, it's this foreign entity. The objective of the deep state is to destroy the United States Constitution. Right? Once you destroy that constitutional republic, it folds down, it breaks down, and then you can absorb it. It looks like the objective is to absorb it into a larger geographical composure. But that would be likely what's going on with the UN. And keep in mind, when we're talking about the Dominion servers and the manipulation and the rigging of the election based off of that Venezuelan created software called Smartmatic. A large funder of Dominion servers was USAID. USAID.
Yeah.
USAID is the UN. And so it's basically our taxpayer dollars funding our own election rigging. That's national suicide.
And just 2 days ago, you had Chuck Schumer promising if the Dems regain power, they're going to refund everything in USAID.
Hey, Mike, I forgot to tell you that Severino said I was paid by the USAID to work for Biden.
Oh, I never got a cut of that. That's bullshit.
It's a whack job. I just got him thrown off the ballot in Illinois. If you're watching, you piece of shit, Severino, I'm not done with you yet. That's just the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think all of us, anybody on the right now, the left is crazy. I mean, they're demonstrably crazy. These people are just unhinged, detached from reality in every way anybody can think of. And I have no doubt. I mean, I check Blue Sky for Looney Tunes every morning. They're out there plotting and planning right now, making new lists. And I'm absolutely sure that if the left ever regains any type of power, they're coming for all of us. They will. The Republicans are far too hesitant to dispense justice, and they're just afraid the New York Times is going to pretend it's weaponization. But in reality, we voted for these people for a reason. We gave them this power so they can administer justice. And if they don't, they're coming for all of us, guns blazing. Constitution won't matter. Law won't matter. They'll find reason to lock everybody up.
Yeah. So any last words, Ian? Any last comments?
My last comment is it's got to be grassroots. It depends on, obviously buy the book. That's going to help me out, but more importantly, it's going to help you out as the viewer. It's going to help you understand
our children too.
Yeah, and this is and that's military, because it's the Department of Education that was created under Carter. I think it's 1979. That's really there's a former guest that I had on my own podcast. Her name is Charlotte Iserbit. She's passed away now, but she wrote a book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. This is people need to understand. This is generational. This is decades in the making. These people are sitting back. They will quietly and slowly bring this country to its knees.
They have,
regardless of how long it takes them.
They have been, and they've been doing it successfully. They started at my generation. Yep. Well, cool. So hang on, Ian. Mike, why don't you close us out?
All right. Yeah, it's your audience. Thank you for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. We'll be back on Thursday with even